So welcome to the Minotaur's Maze. My guest today is Joshua Lisec, who is the #1 ghostwriter in the world. By age 30, he has ghostwritten 65 full-length books in almost that many niches and has copywritten thousands of credibility-building articles, direct response emails, deal-winning proposals, and sold-out launch sales pages in over 100 industries. Through the Best Way course series, Joshua has also taught persuasive writing to over 2,200 students who apply his templates and use his workflows on books, sales pages, blog articles, white papers, proposals, grant requests, pitch decks, tweets, speeches, and more. Clients and students worldwide trust Joshua's one-of-a-kind ability to help them find the best way to say it, then infuse the right tone so it lands and the right wordplay so it sticks. Joshua, thank you for being here and welcome.
It's my pleasure. Stoked to be here with you today on the Minotaur's Maze.
Brilliant. I like to kick off these interviews all of them by just having a brief overview of the guest, in this case being you. So just quickly run down, how you started and how you got to where you are today.
Yes. So like a lot of people who find themselves at the right place at the right time, I did so by accident. My lifelong ambition as a youngster, as a kid, later as a teenager and as a young man, was to be a novelist someday. And I would write novels and I would be selling all these books and I'd be doing sequels and spin-off series and 10, 20 books and more. Well, I got a 2-book publishing deal when I was 20 years old. Wow. And I'm out marketing the books and signing books and taking selfies with fans, all that good stuff. And then something interesting happens. 2 people who read my novels reached back out to me and said, Joshua, I have wanted to write a book longer than you've been alive, and here you have done it twice. Can you help me finally get mine done? And so my 2 novels were proof of work, so to speak, that I could write a full book, more than one full book, and that they would be good. And there were 2 people who read them and said, oh, okay, I'm sold. I want you to do this for me. But it's not a novel, Joshua. It's my life story. It's a memoir. I want it to be interesting and compelling. I start writing it myself and I say, I was born on this date, this year, in this place to these parents. And that sounds really boring. Nobody wants to read that. I want it to be exciting, but I don't know how to do that. And it's really important to me because I'm getting older and I'm thinking about my legacy. And it's not just about wealth. It's about the lessons I'm passing on to the next generation. And I don't have that documented in any meaningful way. And the clock is ticking. Help me. And that's how I became a ghostwriter. And it was from one person would do the memoir, and then they'd recommend it to a friend, recommend it to a friend of theirs.
Brilliant.
I then worked with them. And then they recommended me to a friend of theirs. And it's been going that way for 11 years now.
Brilliant. So obviously, I know you said you wanted to be a novelist, but the ghostwriting, that was simply an accident, and it's just fireballed since there because of obviously what you did and then the recommendations.
Exactly. And I didn't really have that drive that I once thought, where I would do 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 novels or books under my own name. Because once you do it a couple times, you don't really have that same urge to do so that you once did. And so it became a lot more fulfilling in multiple ways to write other people's books rather than do it myself.
Okay. So, you've basically answered one of the questions that I had for you later on in the show by saying that. But I'll come back to it. But this might seem like a silly question, an obvious question, but I can tell you that there's a lot of people that will not know the answer to this. But what exactly is a ghostwriter in simple terms?
Yes, let's start off with what a ghostwriter is not, because when we think about any given profession, we kind of imagine what it's like you think of a plumber. Well, you kind of imagine them with a plunger and they're fixing a clogged toilet, for example, or maybe they're laying pipe, for example, or they're using one of those stakes to unclog a toilet or fix a drain or whatever. Think of an electrician. You imagine them pulling out a panel and seeing the wires, and they got the gloves on, someone gets shocked. And you think a ghostwriter is, okay, it's someone that you pay to write you something, and then you put your name on it and publish it. and you would be wrong if that's what you thought about a ghostwriter is. It's more so a collaborative process. In fact,
Right.
some of the worst ghostwriting in the world is done the way I just described it, where, hey, I'd like to order a book about fitness. And then the ghostwriter writes a book about fitness, comes back to you. You can't use that book. Not if you are serious about your personal brand, your credibility, and the authenticity.
Mhm.
You have to walk through your ideas and your lessons, your stories, experiences, and tips, tactics, tricks, techniques in order for them to properly grasp what it is that you want to say. But the thing is, you don't need to do the heavy lifting yourself. For most authors, I meet with them once a week for an hour for anywhere from 3 to 5 months. And that becomes a significantly less of a time commitment than trying to write it themselves
Mhm.
or hiring an editor to work after them. But they know that it's still enough time for them to get me what I need in order to write a book that's in their voice with their writing style, but it's the proper structure, which is what a ghostwriter really does, is they know what the book in their industry is supposed to read like, how
Mhm.
it's supposed to flow from one topic to the next, where you start the book, how you finish it, how you start each chapter, how you finish each chapter. And that's just not included in the typical freelance ghostwriter process. They don't know, you know. And so the worst way to ghostwrite it is often, I don't know what should be in your book. What do you want to say? And then what they end up doing is they record the conversation.
Mhm.
This is less than ideal ghostwriting, of course. They transcribe the conversation with the author, remove the uhs and the ums, and then, okay, you started telling that story there and you ended it there. So I guess that's a chapter. Is where you tell that story. No, that's not how it works. That's a transcript. And there are these companies that they assign you what they call scribes,
Mhm.
short for transcribers. Whereas what they do is they interview you, transcribe it, you remove the uhs and the ums, kind of like an advanced transcription software like Temi or Rev.com,
Mhm.
and then they call it a book. Chapter 1.
Yeah.
And then wherever you started talking about content for chapter 1 is where they begin it. You do not need a scribe company for that,
Mhm.
period. You can just turn on speech to text software in Google Docs under chapter 1 and just start talking, and then call the uhs and ums yourself, you know. So that's what ghostwriting is not. But true ghostwriting is more like acting in print, where you portray the author, you portray the client in their voice with authenticity, so that the reader has no reason to believe it's not their words and their story and their lessons.
Mhm. Well, I'm really glad you gave that distinction, because my follow-up question to that was going to be, for the person who's hiring a ghostwriter, is it not cheating that they're getting somebody else to write the book but making out it's them? And I suppose you've kind of answered that question a little bit with that distinction, because I think a lot of people have this idea that a ghostwriter is somebody that just does all the work, and then the person who puts their name on it takes all of the credit for it. But obviously the actual process, or the process that it should be done, is a lot more different, and it's obviously as you described. So it's not really cheating. It's just more of a helpful way of for an individual to get their voice out, but then structured in a way that makes it more readable and easier to read for obviously the audience, and then obviously sell more copies.
Yes, exactly. And that's what you want, is somebody who is an insider to the industry. They're an expert on publishing, and they know exactly what works for a book and what doesn't. And so probably 80% of a ghostwriter's job is guiding the author through what not to write about, what not to say, how not to say it. And then of course we replace it with what to say. And I'm a big believer in using standard operating procedures, best practices, templates even, because those practices, processes, procedures used and adhered to well are indistinguishable from a pure stroke of genius,
Hmm.
magic of inspiration, even the muse herself. And so clients will often read what I wrote, and they're like, this is the best way to say it. And that, of course, is why I titled my first course in my Best Way series, The Best Way to Say It, because that's the feedback I'm getting from my author clients and for the last 11 years.
Brilliant. And so, I'm going to talk more about ghostwriting, but obviously the theme of this podcast is based on the Greek myth Theseus and the Minotaur, and where the Minotaur is symbolic of, the internal Minotaur, which is fears, insecurities, doubts, etc. And then the external Minotaur is the challenges and hardships of life. So in that ghostwriting process that you've, just talked about there, what were some of your internal Minotaurs and external Minotaurs that you had to fight to get where you are today?
Yeah, so it was around what I'm going to say next. The best at any profession are also the best at selling in that profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meaning those who understand their greatness and what they're capable of doing for clients and consistently provide to clients, their service is the easiest sell. So talking to someone who is at that level of elite performance, buying from them feels like a breeze. You want to buy from them. You feel disappointed if they won't let you hire them.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything associated with selling, with customer acquisition, client acquisition, author acquisition, you might say, became preeminent for me as my focus on how to build a ghostwriting business. Because how to sell ghostwriting ultimately leads you to how to provide the best ghostwriting service that you possibly can. And that is advice that applies to any industry. And a lot of people are afraid of selling, I think, because, well, is it really worth it? Am I really worth it? Am I really that good? Well, what if they don't get their money back? And it becomes an issue of fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You only need a couple of home run clients that woefully underpaid you before you realize, oh, wow, I'm woefully undercharging. And for me, it wasn't even a book project. It was a sales letter, because I ghostwrite a lot that are in the brand voice or the expert's voice, who's the creator of this course or that program or whatever. And one of the sales letters, the client, it was an information product. I think that's relevant, as opposed to something that has a 5% or less profit margin. So it's an information product. So it's almost all, profit. And it was a soft launch to, I think, subscribers of his. So he wasn't even paying for traffic. I charged him $500 for the sales page. It was a long one. I mean, like 2,000 words, right? And casually, a few weeks later, he texted me and said, oh, by the way, Josh, I want to let you know that sales letter you did, we sold everything we wanted to in an hour.
Wow.
US $200,000.
Wow. Okay.
And it was that moment where I realized, I need to start putting a couple of extra zeros on that price that I am charging. And that, of course, was realizing that I'm not taking money from people. They're not paying me, and it's like I owe them something. I owe them a cheap price. Is they're paying for the absolute best. And in any industry, the best is not the cheapest. The cheap option breaks. The cheap option doesn't work. The cheap option is unpredictable, you see. And so I realized that by being affordable, by being a discount ghostwriter, what I was doing is I was, in no uncertain terms, I was telling potential clients, my writing sucks. It's not going to make you any money. It's cheap, it's quick, it's easy, because it's bad. I'm interchangeable with any other freelancer you could find, any other writer you could find on LinkedIn or on Upwork or even on Fiverr. And that's not the message that I wanted to send, because that's not the product that I deliver. And so I realized that for my clients' own sake, to tell them that they can get the absolute best content from me, I have to charge the absolute best prices. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm the most expensive. There's a few other ghostwriters I know that are significantly more expensive than I am, but I'm significantly more expensive than 90 to 95% of other professional writers, and I earn more than they do because my clients earn more than their clients do.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a problem that a lot of people have. I know a lot of professional. Obviously, I came from a professional background. Even in the legal industry, so I know a lot of lawyers. They're fantastic at what they do. They're top professionals, hard workers. But when it comes to selling, they absolutely suck. And even in this industry, some of the more mediocre lawyers, the average lawyers, weren't that good at their job. But because they were good at sales, they got all of the clients and the top jobs. So I mean, that is definitely a massive minotaur for a lot of people. But I suppose the big difference between what you just said and what other people, I suppose, face on a more consistent way is you were convinced that you were the best at what you do. Whereas a lot of people are questioning whether they are good enough. So what exactly caused you to have that self-confidence? Was it just the feedback that you got from the early days, or was it from the books that you wrote yourself first? Or what caused you to have that inner confidence and self-belief that I am the best at this, and therefore I'm getting the results, and now I'm going to charge what I'm worth?
So it wasn't anything internal, it was external feedback. It
Okay.
was authors telling me, Joshua, you're the best ghostwriter I've ever come across.
Mm.
For almost 5 years ago, a CEO in Europe reached out to me. We had a conversation. He hired me. And he said, Joshua, I have talked to 300 ghostwriters, including you. And none of them compare.
Wow.
That was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's
You have another data point. You have another data point like, Joshua, I've hired 11 ghostwriters and fired 11 ghostwriters prior to you. And you're the one for me.
wow.
It is, and that happens a lot, by the way, where I'm the second or maybe third ghostwriter even on a project, and the
Mhm.
previous ones have been fired, and I look at what they wrote, and I understand why. And it's usually what they'll do is, because they don't know the topic very well at all, they'll go over to Wikipedia or dictionary.com and just wholesale copy and paste content from a free online encyclopedia to talk about the author's topic. And so it comes across as elementary, and the
Mhm.
author is beside themselves because they can't put out elementary level content, fluff,
Mhm.
and imagine that it is going to impress their colleagues in the industry. And this is the typical ghostwriter, of course.
Mhm.
And so when you realize what's average in your industry, you realize how hard it is to find a good one, much less a great one. And then I've had 3 clients have told me that in no uncertain terms, I am the #1 ghostwriter in the world. And that's what I'm being billed as. And so when I say that, I'm simply quoting clients. When I say that my
Mhm.
process is the best way to say it, quoting my clients on this. And so I think what you get there is a sort of earned confidence
Mhm. Mhm.
versus kind of making it up from within. Is when you realize that you really are as good as your clients say you are, and you see it in dollars and cents. And there was a client that I charged very, very little to ghostwrite her book. And in 6 months, her book sales plus course sales from the book, because I designed the book to upsell the readers directly into the course, she made US $300,000 in 6
Wow.
months.
Wow.
And what will someone pay to earn $300,000?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
$295,000 maybe. It's just a matter of scale at that point. I'm slightly exaggerating, but it wasn't anywhere near what she paid me. Like
Yeah.
it was basically free compared to a number like that. And that means if your work is basically free relative to the return on investment, they're not going to take it seriously. They're not
Mhm.
going to value it. And we all know that people who take you seriously, people who value what you do, are going to get the best results out of it.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I realized that for my client's own sake, I need to live up to, rather, that's not even it. I need to embrace the standard I've already lived up to.
Smashing. I absolutely love that. So talk to us about that process. And obviously, were you just naturally gifted with this, or did you have to go through this period of years of working on this? Like, people listening to that will be like, great, I'd love to get external validation, but how do I get myself to the level where I'm getting that feedback? Like, did you go through a process, or was it all just natural? Like, just talk to us about that.
It really is one case study at a time, one testimony at a time, starting from where you're at. Like let's say there's a fitness trainer. I want to become a fitness trainer. Then what's the absolute minimum? What's the minimum viable testimonial? You have MVP, minimum viable product. Well, think about minimum viable testimonial. If you're
Mhm.
gonna be a fitness trainer, what do you need? You probably need 4 testimonials from people who say, yeah, I gained, 10 pounds of muscle mass and lost 15 pounds of fat mass. And now my body mass index is this. I feel better than ever. And look at my blood panels or whatever. Wow. Okay. That's the real deal now. And a lot of times to get your minimum viable testimonials, you will need to hustle. There's some people who will, that it might even make sense for you to say, hey, don't pay me until you get the results I'm promising. It might make sense to do that. I know there's people that will even say, if I don't get the results, then I pay you my fee. That's some serious risk reversal right there. So you have to know you're good if you're going to pull that off. I know there were some companies that I know of that do a risk reversal that is that powerful and that persuasive. But really what you need a minimum viable testimony is when you're just starting out. So what are you reasonably confident you can deliver in terms of results? Maybe it's not, I can write you a 50,000 word book and orchestrate your book launch so that you earn $100,000 in a week. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something more like, I can get you, I can write you 100 tweets and I can guarantee that one of them is going to get 100 likes. And that service is $50. I know I'm like going wild exaggerating here, but this is at the very, 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 very beginning. You're like, wow, okay, this person is just starting out, but I really can't say no to that. I have absolutely nothing to lose. That should be how your first offer feels to your clients. Wow, I have nothing to lose there. I get 100 tweets, I pay $50 for them, and they all suck. Well, then I don't have $50, and maybe they give me some ideas, for example. But if one of them gets 1,000 likes or 100 likes, even maybe is what you're presenting. Wow, that was cheap. Let's do that again. And so that is the ideal service, is one that initially feels like I have nothing to lose. But second of all, the offer should feel like, but if it works, I want to do it again. I want to subscribe to it. I want to become a retainer client. That's the best sort of offer for any industry in any space. And I'll say it one more time because that's so important. The best offer when you're starting out, number one, it feels like the client has nothing to lose because it's the promise relative to the cost. The ROI is basically guaranteed to be there. And then the second thing is, should they get that ROI and it wildly succeed, then they'll say, wow, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. I want to resubscribe. That is a two-part offer that is irresistible as an ongoing thing that you can build a real income out of. And it's not unrealistic to get to US $4,000 a month from that, or $5,000 a month consistently, $10,000 a month consistently, because as you're getting results, people want to keep paying you for those results. So you don't have to go out and get a new client over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, so I mean, I was watching your TED talk earlier, and you mentioned the story there of how you were working, and then I think it was your boss that said you're too good for this job. You need to go out and become a freelancer. So, did you go the freelancing road while still having that job, or did you quit that job first and then go down the freelancing road? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because I know a lot of people are fed up with their job, but they might not be in a position to just go out and quit, but at the same time they're thinking, I don't have enough time to go out and have a side hustle kind of thing. So in thinking about people in that situation, like what would be your advice, and how did you do it yourself, and would you encourage people to do it that way, or would it be different now you've got a bit more experience?
Excellent question. I had been freelancing for almost exactly a year and a half. It was a little over a year and a half from the time that I began, the time that I went full time with it. The reason I went full time with it is because I had proven to that point that I could pick up the occasional gig, the occasional writing gig. Now, it wasn't something like, it was like I wasn't making from freelance writing double my income, or even I wasn't even getting to 1.5 times income. And that's this, but then that's what they say, you need to have at least 6 months. Like the ideal apparently is at least 6 months of you're earning 1.5 to 2 times your salary from your day job before you quit. And that seems pretty wise, honestly.
Yeah.
if you're at that level. Now it's going to be really hard to get to that point, of course. And this is a hard path. It is very hard. It is much harder than having a day job. It's much harder than the gig economy where you just sign up for an app and deliver stuff on this or that other service. But that means that this advice is not going to be for everyone. And that's okay. It's for people who are willing to pay the price of success. I think it was the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, Scott Adams, who said, find out what the price of success is and then pay it. So what is success for you, and what is its price? Now, for me, that meant I wanted to quit the full-time job as fast as possible to free up my entire day, my entire week, to getting clients. I had a retainer client, my first retainer client for 3 months when I quit my full-time job.
Mhm.
Now, 2 months later, the retainer client I ran into some financial trouble and quit. That's not entirely true. He paused the agreement for I think it was like 4 or 5 months while he got some of his books together. But I went from this is great to, oh no, what have I done? But I did have to scramble, and I like, well, where do I find clients of mine, potentially clients? Well, people who have businesses, and the businesses need content. Where am I going to find businesses? And so I remember there was one day where I went to 6 business events locally, and I was averaging 3 to 5 events a day. Where, okay, this thing's gonna be 7:45. I'm gonna go there. This next thing's at 9. Next thing's at 11. Next thing's at 1. There's another thing at 1:15. I'll just check out the thing at 1, and maybe if it's not good, I'll go to the one at 1:15. Wow. And I was spending 80% of my day trying to get projects, and it worked. It worked. Now, the thing that I probably should have realized sooner, because I did that, what I just described there, I did that for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, 16 even. So actually more like 3 years, 3.5 years. When I transitioned from networking in person and going to events and trying to meet business people in Chamber of Commerce and this and that networking event and this business owners group and all this other stuff, something amazing happened. And that amazing thing, and aside from the Echo Dot device that's been going off annoyingly, which is why I muted myself, amazing thing that happened was I thought, what if I stop networking in person and start networking online? And the results were both amazing and terrifying. Terrifying because I began to count the cost of how much wasted time I had talking to people who weren't really qualified. If I could go into a Facebook group and someone would say, hey, I need help with my content, I would reply and they'd say, done, you're hired. All in an hour and a half. As opposed to driving somewhere for an hour, going there for 2 hours, talking to someone, talking to that person, following up with 4 people, setting up meetings, 2 weeks later, meet with someone. I mean, we're into countless hours to get paid $200 US. It just made sense to do this stuff online. Plus, of course, there's everything people are realizing about the advantages of work from home over local anything is remarkable. Plus, I found that the clients were significantly better quality because they were taking the digital space seriously.
Yeah.
When I tweeted yesterday, and it's not an exaggeration, sadly, and many people could relate. I tweeted, and this was in 2015. In 2015, I was talking to a local business owner. They said, Joshua, we are ready to overhaul our entire online presence. So that means we need to have a new website copy. We need new social media content. We need to have regular blogs coming out. We need to hit all these keywords. We need to have new LinkedIn profiles for everyone, and we need a bunch of ads done. And we're real excited for this. I'm like, great. This is gonna be a big project. This is gonna be amazing. And he said, our budget is US $500. And by the way, that includes advertising. That includes advertising.
Wow.
Now, I took the gig.
Okay. Was that out of necessity? Obviously, it must have been out of necessity.
Yes. Yes. At the time, it certainly was. And I was looking at what are my options? And that was, out of a room of 10 business owners, and the one person says, yeah, I can pay you for content. Like, well, okay, I'll do everything I can for that. A year and a half later, doing that same thing online, the person would say, here's $5,000, here's $15,000, here's $25,000, right? And it's because it's the same problem, the same need, getting content. But the business owners who have an online presence realize how significant content is, whereas the local business owners who get foot traffic, who get referrals, content to them is only ever seen by like 2 people a month. So they valued it at 2 people a month are going to see this. Whereas online, if you're running ads, even if you have a product-based business or a services-based business, well, shoot, guess what? You need content. You need a lot of it. You need it yesterday.
Brilliant. Yeah. And you know, I can, you know, relate to a lot of that, because in the legal industry, I used to do a lot of this online and going there and back. And it is one of the reasons why I hated the 9 to 5 career and the 9 to 5 job was the traveling and then being stuck in an office. And, you know, when you transition, you know, obviously the pandemic allowed a lot of people to work from home, but I was lucky enough to work from home as a legal consultant a few years ago. And the first day that I worked from home, that just signaled the end of my traditional career, because once you have that freedom, it's more the flexibility. I wouldn't even call it freedom, because, you know, I'm still doing all of the work, but it's just that flexibility that you have from you know, from working from home, which you don't get by being in an office. And, you know, I know now, you know, a lot of people have experienced that working from home. They've got paid for basically doing nothing with all the schemes, and now they've had to go back to the office and they're hating it. They're now feeling trapped and miserable, and they're looking for a way out. And obviously, because of that, they're looking at online businesses, and writing is always something people go to. And I would say a lot of people go for writing because they are shy, they are introverts, and they feel that writing is their best avenue to make money without really having to speak to that many people. And to be honest, that was one of the reasons why I decided to be a copywriter at one period in time. So now I wanted to be a copywriter because I was naturally good at writing, and I did, you know, I had a really bad fear of speaking, you know, not too long ago. So I wanted to avoid speaking, and I thought I'd become a copywriter. But it's not as simple as that, because, well, what I found was the writing is probably the easiest part of the process. You know, doing the research and the editing is a lot more difficult and time consuming. But just because you're good at writing doesn't mean you're good at getting clients and getting sales. And you have to develop the confidence and the self-esteem and the communication skills to basically approach people, to discuss their needs, and to get clients. And I think this is what a lot of people are not realizing. So I'm glad you said that your journey has been very, very hard, because a lot of people today are being sold this: here's an 8-week course on how to start your business, and you're going to be profitable within 8 weeks, and everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. But in reality, that's not how it works. So those people that are thinking about leaving their job and starting a writing business, but they're not that comfortable with speaking, and they're quite shy, what is your advice to them on how they should approach this journey? From, obviously, they're currently in their job, but they're looking to start a writing gig. Should they go onto sites like Upwork or a freelancer, or should they start prospecting, or what should be their first step in starting this journey?
All useful questions. I'll say this: most people are willing to do the hard thing if they know it's the right thing.
That's nicely put.
So we are not willing to do the hard thing, or at least the harder thing, or the hardest thing, if we're not confident it's the right thing to do. Especially if there's 10 things you could try, 1 or 2 of them might work, but you don't have the time, the effort, the energy, or even the money to spend trying all 10 of them to the best that you possibly can. Well, shoot, what do you do? What do you do? That becomes a very difficult question to try to answer. And so what can you do that's going to get you in front of people who need what you do? And that's an open-ended question, but it really is the most useful question. Where are they, and how can you get their attention? It's as simple as that.
Brilliant. So would you advise them to go onto websites like Freelancer Work? I mean, the reason I mentioned that is because when I was starting out, this was the advice that I was getting at the time. But my experience on Upwork was horrendous. Like, you know, I was pitching for jobs, and then when I finally got one, it was $20. And it started off being, I can't remember how many thousands of words it was, but doing the job itself wasn't that difficult, but it was going back and doing the amendments, and all of a sudden there was no limit on the words, and it just got longer and longer and longer. And then by the end of it, I'm like, what was the point of this? The amount of work, the amount of time going to the research, doing the writing, the amendments, and at the end of it, there's just $20, and that just put me off the whole process. Whereas when you get other clients from other means, like I remember the first time I got paid $1,000 for a copywriting job, it was the complete opposite experience, because it was, an hour or so talking to the client on a face-to-face call like this, and then it took me. I already knew the topics. I didn't have to do that much research, and altogether it probably was about 3-4 hours of work, and that was the opposite feeling. It's like, is this it? Is that all I had to do? Like, I'm used to spending hours and hours and hours, weeks and weeks and weeks to making a set salary, but this took me a few hours to make $1,000. Like, what is your best advice here? Is it to go down the freelancer, them type of websites, or is it to go directly to a client, bearing in mind you've got no prior experience of getting clients, and you've not done a copywriting job before?
Yeah. I had a similar experience that you did, where like my very first freelance writing gig that I got in 2011 paid US $1.67 an hour, which is, a fraction of what the minimum wage for low skilled and no skilled labor is here in the States. Now, I will say this. It did teach me something valuable, which is that people would be willing to pay me for writing outside of W-2 employment. W-2 employment, for those not familiar, is like a full-time job where you're salaried, or have like an hourly job here in the States, where your employer gets you a paycheck quarterly, weekly, every other week, monthly, that sort of thing. It was the first time that I was getting paid directly from the user, the customer, as opposed to from an organization, from a business, from an institution. So that felt gratifying. Did not feel gratifying how much work I did for basically nothing. Like I pay more in PayPal fees every day and processing fees than I would make in a year.
Wow.
Slight exaggeration there, but it just shows you how far you can go if you keep going. And so one of the worst ways to start your adventure is to be one of millions. I mentioned go to where people who need what you do are and get their attention. Yes, Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer, etc., LinkedIn even, that is where your potential clients are, but you cannot get their attention when you're one of possibly dozens or hundreds of people who are pitching a job.
Mm-hmm.
So they're there, but you can't get their attention. Okay, so then where are they that you could get their attention? Well, they're in private groups. Frankly, that's where they're at. They're in Facebook groups for business owners and entrepreneurs and people in your industry. They're in LinkedIn groups, which are not as active as Facebook groups. There's also private groups associated with different, really popular communities. Like, so what are some of the groups that people are members of that you could afford to get into, even if it's, $9 a month or $99 a year or something like that? It's a sort of an entry fee to gain access to potential clients. So then how do you get your attention once you're in there? Well, you reach out to the moderator and say, hey, moderator of the group, the founder of the group, the admin, and say, hey, I would like to offer some value to this community that I've just recently joined. And then that's when you can do a live video if you have their permission. Write an article that they could post for the group. You could offer to do free rewrites of stuff. I did this a lot of the time back in 2016, 2017, where I would go live in someone else's group and spend an hour and a half giving advice on people's book ideas that they have. And even like they would share a writing sample with me and I would work on it there and live in front of everyone. You bet I got clients out of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would have to be willing to do it. So it has to be those two things. Go where they are and get their attention. And the best way to get their attention is to help them with something that they need to get done anyway. And that's going to be different for everyone, whether it's in coding or whether it's in writing or it's in fitness or it's nutrition or relationship coaching or whatever the case may be. Whatever it is your people need, go where they are and offer them a free sample of it. That is actually it's hard because you have to be willing
Yes.
to
Mhm.
you have to be willing to do it, but it's the right thing to do. And if you know it's the right thing to do, then it's not so hard anymore.
Yeah, and this comes back to what, the 5-step process that you talked about in your tech talk, where the first thing is, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. So people are in the 9 to 5 jobs typically. You never have to worry about sales and marketing because you've never really, unless you're in that department, but you don't have to worry about the different components of the business other than your set tasks. Whereas when you're going out on your own, it's not just about the skill that you've got. Yes, you need the skill, but you've got to develop all of these other aspects of the business, and that means coming out of your comfort zone. And you are going to have to chase for work. You are going to have to do free things and go here and there. And it's not as plain and sailing and easy as everybody today makes out. Like, there is a lot of hard work required to get traction. And I suppose it comes, a lot of writers, obviously everybody's different, but this generation, especially the millennials, a lot of them are introverts, they're shy. Did you have that issue, or were you always confident, or did you develop speaking skills? Obviously you've done a TED talk, and that's a big thing, but were you ever in the shy introvert category, and did you do something to develop that, or were you naturally confident and okay with speaking?
What I've noticed is that people who are ultra famous, they always say, and it's uncanny how much they say it, I've always been such an introvert, tee. I'm such an introvert, you guys. Oh my God. This is what they say. Okay. And even say it like that. They're lying, of course. They want to appear like they've overcome some sort of a personal challenge.
Mhm.
Go back to when they were 10 years old and they were trying to get seen by anyone and everyone they could. They invited their entire neighborhood to their show. Okay. These are extreme extroverts we're talking about. Now, in my case, I was homeschooled as a youngster, and homeschooling in 2022 looks a lot different than in 1992. Okay. At those days, there were no real cooperatives or pods, as they're called nowadays, no like private tutors or parents, swapping one another's kids, and they'd all teach one another in like a kind of a spontaneous recreation, like an organic, decentralized recreation of a school environment. There wasn't that. There was the books and there was the basement. Go down to the basement, read your books, do your schoolwork, 8 to 4 o'clock, every day. And so I had very, very, very little socialization. And that turned out about as exactly as you would probably imagine that it would. Ridiculously socially awkward experience. Further compounded that I later learned that I'm on the spectrum, as they say, for ASD. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense for everything. But I realized something interesting happened when I went to college for the first time. And this was the first time that I was around a lot of people all at once. Strangers, of course. And that was interesting, is I just found people did not make any sense to me. Why are you this way? Well, this is obvious that you should do it this way. If you plagiarize, you're going to get a failing grade. Why would you do that? You see, so this is how I logically thought about it. And I also realized in group projects in college, I was the one who wanted the A. Nobody else cared. And they realized I wanted the A. So what did they do? Joshua,
You do all the
I
work.
want to make sure I do this right. Can you help me out? And that ended up in me doing their work, of course. They understood people better than I did. And these people could pull a few fast ones on me. And eventually I realized, this is interesting. People are a little different. They're peculiar. And the peculiarity of people led me to learning about the psychology of persuasion, influence, what motivates the human animal, so to speak, what drives us. And so much of that kind of extracurricular study, the books that I read, informs how I write to this day. And also how I communicate. Because when you realize that what you say is not what people hear, you realize that the onus to communicate effectively is on you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. When you realize that people's perception of you is their reality of you, you realize that we live in a world of alternative facts now. We each have our own separate realities. The social media bubble means that a study that supports your chosen diet plan is shared widely inside your bubble and never outside of it, and vice versa.
Yes.
Someone else in another bubble, their scientific studies are shared widely and are known as the gospel truth inside your circle, but no one outside of it will ever hear it. And if they did, what will they say? Oh, that's obviously a BS study. That's obviously not legitimate. That's obviously, oh, look at the sample size. You see, so we live on our own little realities. And so understanding that is extremely helpful, not just for myself to relate to people, to get along with people, to communicate with people, but also that I can know, generally speaking, what's going on in people's heads. When I gave that TEDx talk, it was probably one of my finest works, my finest hours, so to speak, to that point in my life. And I go up there on stage, and an introvert, an extremely socially awkward introverted person, and such as I was in my younger days, would be in front of everyone thinking, oh, what are they thinking about me? Look at all these people out here. Oh, this is going to be scary. Palms start to get a little damp, and you start to feel cold, and your heart pounds. Your voice shakes a little bit, and you get real nervous, and then you forget all your lines.
Yeah.
But put yourself in the audience's seat. Are they sitting there thinking, oh man, this guy better have a great delivery and not forget a line, or I'm going to be upset? That's what we think they are. But when you realize what's actually going through someone's mind most of the time, they're sitting there thinking, when's this going to be over?
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I got to check my text messages. I think I felt my phone buzz. They're not in the room with you at all. They're thinking about their phone. They're hungry, or they're wondering, there's that cute chick sitting over there. Maybe I should talk to her after this guy's done. This is what's happening in their mind. The only thing they want from me is to be interesting, to be something that can distract them long enough from their problems.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that that's what most people want, is they want a pleasant distraction. Look at my YouTube videos. Every single one of them is a pleasant distraction. Now, of course, they get people to hire me, but my tweets, my Twitter game, my interviews, my TEDx talk, my articles that I write, it's a pleasant distraction from the doldrums of reality. And that is what works. It may not be the thing that goes viral. I've had a few things that have gone viral, so to speak, and my TEDx talk has a lot of views. It's like top 10% of views of all TEDx talks. That's in the tens of thousands. It's not like millions like Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
You know, those are the outliers. But most TEDx talks, 500 views, 1,000 views. You know, give a reference, frame of reference there. But that's what I realized about most people, and that is what got me over the over social awkwardness and self-consciousness. Is people just don't care.
Yeah.
They're bored, they're miserable, and they're looking for pleasant distraction. So they watch a YouTube video of mine for the same reason that they put on Netflix. Pleasant distraction.
Beautiful. Absolutely love that. That's a fantastic answer. And, you know, as somebody who, I did have social anxiety, and, you know, I agree and I relate to all of that. I suppose the biggest problem we've got is, you know, we're too busy thinking everybody's going to be thinking this and everybody's going to be thinking that. And the way I reframed it for myself is, you know, that's quite an arrogant thought to have, thinking that you're the center of everyone's attention and they're going to be thinking this and they're going to be thinking that. They just don't care. And, you know, it is freeing, but, you know, at the same time, you still got to take that jump. You've got to come out of your comfort zone. You've just got to do things. So, you know, my way of overcoming this fear was to make these videos online. So I just started making videos online, then started this podcast and just progressed from there. And it just has a knock-on effect on everything else, which, you know, it kind of is linked to this, but in a little different way. So because obviously you get a lot of opportunities and there's so much things you can do with video. The same applies with writing, and, you know, sticking to the theme of the Minotaur and the maze and the labyrinth. There's just so many different forms of writing, and it's a maze in and of itself. How would you how did you determine which form of writing is best for you, and this is what you want to do, and, you know, in a way that would help the audience? Like, how should they figure out what form of writing they should pursue? Because obviously content writing isn't exactly copywriting, and then, you know, you've got academic writing. There's different forms of writing. Like, how would you go about that process of trying to figure out what type of writer you want to be, and you'd be the best to get paid for?
Excellent question with a simple answer, which is, what type of writing can you generate for your clients that the fastest measurable results from. Now,
Cool.
this could be something as simple as, I write cover letters and for CVs and for resumes, and people send them out and they hear back and they get a job. Okay, so I'm the CV writer. That's a measurable result. It could be, I understand a little bit about SEO, so I write SEO blogs for myself, and then I get some good placement on Twitter, or I got a placement on Google and whatnot, and so I can do that for clients too. So that's all I do. And now in my case, ghostwriting books for business owners who want to use the book to generate content, clients who are ready to hire them. They don't have to spend months chasing them again, but they're ready to hire them. They're qualified leads. That is very hard to do that. It's very expensive to do that with traditional advertising. So they want a book to do it for them, because a book gives you authority, credibility, and expertise all in one place, all in one marketing asset. And so it just makes sense for them to do that way. And I'm the person for that. So that I don't, as I was telling you before the call, I don't ghostwrite, tweets and ghostwrite threads and ghostwrite Facebook posts or ghostwrite ads or that sort of thing. I could, and I have, and I did, but I don't anymore, because I want to spend my time and my effort with my clients, giving them the biggest results they can. And that for them is going to be nonfiction books.
Brilliant, brilliant. Absolutely love that. And I'm just conscious of the time, so I'll wrap up soon. But I read earlier that on your website, it says that 67% of books you've read from best-selling authors were written by you. How did you calculate that? Like, what was the process in calculating that number?
There's a few things that go into that. The first of which is that I did not write that. Second of which is it's directionally accurate. So the first thing is I use a tool called Hype Fury, for like my social media management, like Twitter stuff and whatever. So there was a few months ago, Hype Fury said, hey, if you use Hype Fury, reply to this tweet and we'll rewrite your bio. I thought, okay, that sounds fun. And so the bio you see on Twitter is the bio that Hype Fury's people wrote for me. I thought that was hilarious. So I put it on there. Now, it turns out that it's not too far away from reality. Many times, so many times I've lost count. I'll be talking to a prospective client, an author, and they'll turn away, like to the bookshelf behind them, and then they're like, Joshua, when I think about the book that I want to have, I think of this book over here, and I want to look. I just want to show it to you real quick, and then they will pull up a book that I wrote, and I could just like smirk, smile, and nod, of course. And I've got it now. It's gotten to the point that authors will tell me, Joshua, I know we had confidentiality, but I'd like to go ahead and break that because I want people to know that you wrote the book, because then people will buy it.
Wow.
So I'm at that stage of my career now, is that people are buying books, even if it's not, like, it could be about how to get divorced. And they could be happily married, but because Joshua Lisec was involved, they buy it. This is where we are at now in our lives.
That's fantastic.
And so it's directionally accurate, as are the most truthful truths that we know.
Brilliant. And so just sticking to that point, like, obviously you write for different people and in their different voices, but is there, would you be able to tell this is a book written by you in the different genres, or is it because you're so good at what you do and it's in the voice of the author that you wouldn't be able to, is there similarities between the writing? Because the reason I asked that is because on Twitter now, obviously there's a ghostwriting boom going on in Twitter, but you've got these different accounts, but they all sound the same, and you almost can tell that it's the same person writing the tweets for the different accounts. So is there something that would say this was written by you, or are they all different because of the authors?
You're right that there are a lot of ghostwriters. It's like, I think in 2017, 2018, everybody was into drop shipping. And then everyone is starting an agency. And then everyone is into affiliate marketing. And then now everyone's into Twitter ghostwriting. So in a year or so, there will be some controversy in which it's revealed that the same ghostwriter was using identical, if not very, almost like basically plagiarized content across multiple accounts, multiple people. Someone's going to get in trouble. A blue check, a verified influencer is going to get dragged through it. Then there will be mainstream articles about the deceitfulness of these Twitter ghostwriters and whatnot, and then people will flee from the profession and they'll go to something else. This is what's going to happen. Now, Can people recognize what I've written? The voice of them all is different. So when people say, "Hey, Joshua, can I see some stuff you've written before?"
Mm-hmm.
I will send them 4 authors' books from 4 different categories, 4 different types of people, four different ethnicities even, and they'll read them, and it's like, yeah, this isn't the same person. It's obviously not the same person. Well, that's how you know it's good. But I've had a couple of people reach out to me successfully pointing out that they found something that I had written without me leading them towards it.
Okay.
And they said, "Joshua, I knew it was you because it was unusually good." That's how they described it. By that, they mean it was clear and it was compelling and it was something that reminded me of you and your tweets.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they sent me the link to it. Is this you? and they've been right. I think it's happened twice so far. But the joke now is around the timeline on Twitter, particularly, if someone says they're writing a book, what does that actually mean? And more often than not, they're right that that person hired Joshua Lisec to write the book. There was a period, it was absolutely hilarious, where 3 of my clients on Twitter the same week announced that they're writing a book. It was bizarre. All 3 of them. I'm writing a book. And they all knew each other, which is funny, but they did it independently.
Wow.
And all 3 of them. And then, of course, they went like mini viral. Everyone was excited about their book.
How was that for you? Like, obviously, that's
hilarious.
three separate projects, and isn't that like
Yes.
time consuming? Like, how do you keep? I would have thought you'd have done one project at a time. So, did you do 3 projects at once, or how did you?
They were slightly staggered with one coming up before the next.
Okay.
I use a software called ClickUp as a project management tool, dashboard place to keep everything tracked, all people on the right timeline, all of the above. It's the best thing that I've found for that.
Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Like the time has flown. I did have quite a few more questions, but maybe another time. So I just want to thank you for sharing your wisdom and coming on. And I just want to give you the opportunity, like, who is your ideal client and who should be coming to you, and what can you do for them and how can they contact you?
Yeah. I was saying a few minutes ago, the ideal ghostwriting client for me is someone who is a business owner. So they're looking for high leverage activities, things that they can invest in, things that they can do that are going to get them a lot more of what they want faster. They're willing to pay for it with money, but not necessarily with time of doing it wrong or wasting time or being years and years and years and the thing's still not done. They just want to get it done so they can benefit from it. And they understand that a book uniquely positions them as the go-to expert, the true authority in their industry, in their space, but they don't want to spend 5 hours a day writing it. They want to hire someone to do that. And so that's person for me. The best way is to reach out to me on Twitter at Joshua Lisec. DMs are open, direct messages are open. Hey, Joshua, heard you on the show. I need a book done. Can we talk? Simple as that. Simple as that. And with that, I really enjoyed our time today. I'm very, very grateful. I want to let you know that I like the Minotaur's Maze metaphor as a show because it tells people what to expect from the experience versus, hey, the first name, last name show. I don't know you. I don't care, or, the ultimate success show. Yeah, everyone has a show like that. But you're the first Minotaur's Maze show out there. And the metaphor works well to guide conversations.
Yes.
Well done.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate that. And, just going on with that metaphor. So, a lot of people might think ghostwriters do this and that. In terms of the metaphor, the ghostwriter is the people that will help you on your mission. So I had that as Princess Ariadne, but in life, you've got your mission. You want to get yourself out there. You hire, you get help, and help here is Joshua, who does the ghostwriting for you. And I'd like just to give a couple of case studies, like what results have you got for people, so people understand the power of what you provide, because it's not just a case of here's a book and you're just going to get some exposure. There's real tangible results, and these can be very lucrative tangible results. So could you just let us know a couple of those results that you've got and what people can expect by working with you?
Yes, every book is designed to be a funnel from the $9 ebook or the $19.99 soft or paperback to your highest ticket item. And the objective is to shortcut the time it takes from someone to first hear about you to hire you for your biggest bang for the buck for you package, whether that's $10,000 or $100,000. And so what the objective of the book is to get in front of people. Wow, that sounds like a great title. I want to learn about that. They get into the material. Oh, what's this? They have a website where I can get more
Mhm.
useful tutorials and step by step. I'm going to go there. That's where they get the upsell. And maybe it's to a course, and maybe the course. So now they go from buying a $9 ebook to a $99 course, from a $99 course to your $9,000 service, as fast as possible to get them there. I had a client named Andy. I did have a non-disclosure confidentiality agreement with him, but then at the end of the time together, it was a few months after that actually, but he sent me a video attachment to an email and said, Joshua, you should publish this on your YouTube. I put up the video, the testimonial, and he spent 2.5 minutes raving about the service experience, how awesome it was, and he laid out his ROI of $1 million
Wow.
from the process, which was just fantastic. Other clients, we'll talk about how, you know, the process more than pay for itself in the first 2 weeks. Now, what I'm laying out here is the power of having a book at the beginning of your funnel. If you don't have a high ticket service or something else that they can buy afterwards, you're probably not going to make a lot of money on your book. In fact, I don't like to work with people who have nothing.
Yeah.
But if you have a business and it takes people a while before they're going to hire you for the most expensive thing, the book is the best tool to shortcut that hiring process, the sales cycle, and you also get paid for it. So you sell more, sooner, easier, cheaper, faster for higher amounts, and you get paid to do so by selling copies of your book. If that's what you want, you need a book.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Once again, thank you very much. Do you have any last words for the audience, especially particularly for those people that are looking to leave their jobs and start a writing career?
Best advice on success is this simple. 3 words. Impress important people.
Love
Impress
it.
important
I
people.
love that. Yes.
Now, does that mean that the person themselves is the most important person in the world or industry, or that they're famous? No, it does not. But it does mean is that there are people who deem that individual important. And so that person being aware of the fact that they have shareholders or customers or subscribers or followers that they need to make sure their personal brand is protected for, if you can impress them, they will talk and people will listen, and you will get gigs and you will get referrals and you will make it.
Brilliant. Absolutely love that advice. Once again, thank you for your time. As for the viewer, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next one. Take care now. Bye bye.